apologize. Please forgive me. You told your experience about voter intimidation, how hostile people were to GOP observers, the room erupting with cheers. Why don't you tell us your story?
So I am an unaffiliated voter. I'm not a GOP person. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. But I got called in, or I received a note that said that they received a bunch of ballots in the middle of the night and they didn't have enough people. So I got trained by the GOP and they brought me in. And the first thing that you noticed after just being in there just a little while was the animosity that you felt from a lot of the poll workers. And shortly after getting into the room, they started boarding up the windows and they kicked a bunch of us out under the guise of lunch. So they used lunch as an excuse to get people out of the room, and then they locked the doors and wouldn't let them back in. And there was no food for the Republican poll watchers. But that's small potatoes compared to what you see next, which is throughout the day, they wielded COVID as a weapon to keep you 6 feet away from the table so that you couldn't do your job. They picked us off one by one throughout the day to uproarious laughter and cheers from almost the entire room. There's video of it online. You can hear how loud the cheering is, and you can't hear the derogatory and sometimes racial remarks that were slurred at us as we got kicked out of the room. So by the end of the day, there weren't enough of us left. So there's about 150 tables in that room, give or take. And by the end of the day, there's only a few dozen of us left to look at the tables and make sure that we're challenging the ballots. And one of the things that I noticed by the end of the day, a stack of at least 35 challenged ballots with challenge stickers on them were at the table that I was at. And I noticed that they were on several other tables as well. So I assume that what I'm about to tell you happened at other tables as well. But I noticed one. They had the challenge sticker on them because they weren't in the poll books. So these could have been fictitious voters, all of them, and there was no way to prove that they were the people that they were saying, but they were just pushing them through. And so they would enter them into the poll book, into the digital poll book, as 1/1/1900 for the birth date, and then they would give it an address and a name, and there was no way for us to check or know or validate anything that they were doing there, and they could have just been entering any fictitious name they wanted, and every time we would try and go in and check or challenge it, they would laugh at us, and they would say, "You can't do that, you can't challenge this." And then somebody would immediately swarm in, some Democrat operative or some poll worker operative, or a supervisor would come in, and then another supervisor. Pretty soon, I was swarmed by three to six people, and they're all telling me, "Get away, you're gonna kill my people," wielding this COVID as a weapon. One of them actually said, "You're holding the pen the wrong way, and you're threatening people with the way that you're holding your pen." It was absurd. And so they break you in here, they separate you from the table.
Braden, you're not the only person, Braden, that saw the birthday of 1/1/1900. You're not the only person that is, and you signed a legal affidavit under the penalty of perjury, correct?
Sure, but when I would try and challenge things that were clearly inaccurate, like a mismatched ballot, I saw a mismatched ballot as well. They would laugh at you and say you can't do that, and immediately a Democrat operative who was standing in the background would come in and start trying to agitate you and get you really worked up. Now, I'm an engineer, I'm pretty logical, I'm pretty methodical, so I made it about 10 hours, and this Democrat operative comes up to me, starts threatening, accusing me of COVID stuff, giving me the COVID runaround, and by the time 6 people show up, start all saying the same thing, then he just kind of melts back into the background. Just with a satisfied look on his face, knowing that he has caused me a problem. So now, the table supervisor comes up to me and says, gives me the COVID runaround, and he starts muttering something to me about playing with him that made me super uncomfortable. And then he said something to the effect of, "I will kick your ass or I will kick you out of here." And I looked at him quizzically and I said, What did you just say to me? And he said it again and again, and I said, I raised my voice and I said, "Are you threatening me?" Because I wanted to make sure that other people would notice this. And as I did this, he waved the cop over without questioning. The cop just took me out of there, and I went peacefully. And this is how it went for everyone that was a GOP lanyard person in that room that night. And when I got kicked out, just like with everybody else, I got thunderous applause, jeering at me, just like everybody else throughout the day after 10 hours.
That should not happen to legal partisan observers that have the right to be there. Thank you for sharing your story, all three of you. Thank you all. All right, when we come back, Kayleigh McEnany, Rudy Giuliani.